Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Nau mai, haere mai, welcome to the 2024 University of Auckland Early Childhood Seminar Series May Seminar. We'll begin our time together with karakia. Me e noi tātou. Tūtawa mai I runga, tūtawa mai I raro, tūtawa mai I roto, tūtawa mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa. Haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation by Associate Professor Carola Keemann from the Arctic University of Norway. Carola came to visit us here in New Zealand earlier in the year and kindly agreed at the time to present for the Early Childhood Seminar Series once she returned to Norway. We are very grateful to her for getting up early on her Monday morning to be with us and for her willingness to share her research on children's bilingual role play. If questions arise for you during the presentation that you would like to ask Carola, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen and she'll respond to them at the end of her presentation. You can also use the chat function throughout the presentation to connect with each other and the panelists. After the seminar, a recording will be available on our Early Childhood Seminar Series YouTube channel. We would also like to take this opportunity to remind you that besides offering Early Childhood Seminar Series, the University of Auckland also offers a range of early childhood focused courses and programs of study, including a new Master of Education Early Childhood specialisation. This flexible program is tailored for teachers, researchers, social workers and more, and leads from postgraduate certification to a master's degree. A University of Auckland Master of Education Early Childhood will equip you with sought after skills, including critical thinking and advocacy for diverse communities. In semester 2 this year, the core course, EDUC 767 Childhood Studies, will be offered online and on campus, which is a great jumping off point for the degree. We'll put a link in the webinar chat for anyone interested in finding out more about the Master of Education Early Childhood and our other postgraduate courses. I will now pass over to Professor Helen Hedges to welcome and introduce Associate Professor Carola Keemann. Thanks, Helen.
Justine. Tēnā koutou katoa. It's indeed my pleasure to introduce Associate Professor Carola Keemann, who teaches language and literature courses in teacher education to early childhood and primary students at the Arctic University in Norway. We think it's cold here. I think Carola has other stories for us. Carola also takes responsibility for practicum experiences, which is how we met her when, as Justine mentioned, she and a colleague visited the University of Auckland earlier this year. Her university is in the northernmost county of Norway, the homeland of the Indigenous Sámi peoples. Carola's main research interests are children's bilingual practices in North Sámi and Norwegian, which has led to an interest in language revitalisation, not only for the Indigenous Sámi languages, but also another minority language in the region. She therefore researches sustainable language practices in Norwegian and Sámi kindergartens. Sustainability here means first and foremost supporting and strengthening Indigenous culture and language. Her current research projects are on bilingual Sámi and Norwegian roleplay, pedagogical translanguaging and language vitalisation, and narrative inquiry as a way to explore Sámi pedagogy. We look forward to hearing about your work on roleplay today, Carola, and to the dialogue afterwards. Over to you.
Thank you for this introduction, Helen. And I'm very grateful for the invitation to be part of this early childhood seminar series. Today, I will be presenting some findings from my PhD project, Play in Two Languages, where I studied language choices of a group of children during free play in a Sámi kindergarten in Norway. And my project could have stranded really early, because when I asked one of my oldest informants, Joret, which is a pseudonym, which languages they spoke in kindergarten, this is what he answered. I barnehagen snakker vi bare samisk. His Norwegian utterance translates to, in kindergarten we only speak Sámi, which should be correct, of course, according to the framework plan for the Sámi kindergartens, and I might add was correct for the most of the time. However, after 2 weeks of pilot fieldwork, 1 month to plan the details, and then 2 months of fieldwork, I did find some traces of other languages. My PhD project was within a larger project, kindergarten, and including community in the multilingual and multicultural Finnmark. It was funded by the Norwegian Research Council. My research question was, how do Sámi Norwegian bilingual children in a Sámi kindergarten use their languages in role play? And even though Jorrit said what he did, I did find some other answers. The children in the Sámi kindergarten used both their languages, North Sámi and Norwegian, while performing role play. It seemed also that the children used a stylized language of role play consisting of different codified utterance types, signifying different levels of reality in play. Code switching between these utterance types could be with or without language alternation, something like translanguaging or spontaneous translanguaging. This code switching is a distinct mode or medium in the peer group's interaction, signifying role play. So what I here refer to as role play is sometimes in English literature referred to as social dramatic play or social pretend play. I may be in danger of orientalizing now, but I would like to show from where my material is. I work at the Arctic University of Norway. On this circular map, a little down and to the right of the North Pole, is what actually is the most densely populated zone in the Arctic. This is also Sápmi, the homeland of the Indigenous Sámi people, a territory that transcends the modern borders of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia. There are 9 named Sámi languages, each following not modern state borders, but the migratory routes of the reindeer from the highlands to the coast. Dávvisámegiella, or North Sámi language, is the majority language of the 3 remaining Sámi languages in Norway. The Lula and South Sámi languages are listed as threatened in Ethnologue. The Pite and Ume Sámi languages are listed with no speakers in Norway. The Sámi languages belong to the Finno-Ugric language group, together with Finnish and Kvän in the area, while Norwegian and Swedish belong to the Germanic language group. The Sámi minority was exposed to the cultural modern nation-building processes of the various countries. In Norway, this process is called fornorskning, which could translate to Norwegianisation. This has led to all Sámi speakers being bilingual in their Sámi language and Norwegian, or even monolingual Norwegian. To correct this situation, several measures are taken with a goal to reverse language shift. Among them, creating institutions like indigenous kindergartens to strengthen Sámi language and culture. I did my fieldwork in the Bear's Den, one of the departments of the Sámi kindergarten. Each of the totally 3 departments have their own rooms, like the one planned here. It has a quite large main room with a dining table, which is the orange big rectangular shape with little chairs around it. It has a kitchen and a sofa area indicated with a red rectangle here, and bookshelves with a lot of Sámi medium books. It has a quite large smaller room with different play stuff adjacent, right behind the red couch, with different play stuff, mainly play kitchen with utensils, beds and mattresses, smaller shelves, child-sized table and chairs. And the door from the main room has a window high up, adult height. To the far right of the architectural interior of the department is the entrance area. So this is the far north, the Arctic. So there are big rooms for clothes and to change from the wet clothes outside to drier indoor clothes. In there is a in the wardrobe area, there is also a much smaller room, originally I think intended for storing, but now equipped with dolls, doll houses, doll clothing, and mattresses. And it was commonly named Barbie-lapnia. And yes, it is Barbie, the Barbie room. The Sámi kindergarten, where I did my fieldwork, is a private institution owned by a Sámi organization. It is intended for Sámi children, but there are no language requirements for acceptance. The main goal of the Sámi kindergartens are to strengthen Sámi identity, language, and culture. In Dávvisámegiella, the bear's den, there were 16 children between the age of 3 and 6 when I did my fieldwork, and 3 adults, 3 employees, 1 preschool teacher, and 2 assistants or skilled workers. All of them were balanced North Sámi and Norwegian bilinguals, but like Peter Auer points to, they were doing bilingualism. They would identify perhaps as Sámi, but doing Sámi-Norwegian bilingualism. They were working with strong language models and encouraging and succeeding in using only Sámi between children and teachers. This red ring is where the play episode that I will be presenting later in the lecture is going on. So it's in the middle of the department and people are just walking to and from. So it's not secluded at all. So I brought my camera into the bear's den, into a Sámi kindergarten to get material for a PhD. Like the linguist I am, I wanted material from free play, unsupervised by the teachers, the real thing. Much like a hidden ornithologist, not being seen by the children. But, well, that did not seem right, though, did it? I wanted, as a main goal, to empower the children by giving them voice, to show and appreciate the brilliant language abilities, and to gain access to the secret language of roleplay. We had to be friends to do this, to give me access. They had to like me enough to let me play with them. So this was some sort of a participatory micro-ethnography, maybe even deep hanging out, as Haraway points to, and could describe it. I did use just a simple video camera on a tripod and move that around with me, quite visible. The children would see the camera, and the little screen on the side to the right of the camera would show what the camera saw at all times. To some extent, I would sacrifice good sound for good relations. And the inexpensive equipment also allowed for the children to play with it. I would always ask them whether I could film the episodes we were in, which resulted in many episodes with some of the children and very few or none with others over the 2 months of my fieldwork. Joret is part of many. He would want the camera on. Being Sámi also came up. One of the teachers asked me if I was Sámi, which somehow threw me into an existential crisis in the middle of my fieldwork. My heritage is certainly Sámi, but I did not grow up speaking the language, as the colonizing forces of Norwegianisation has made most of the coastal areas where I am from monolingual Norwegian. One of the children placed me anyway as speaking Norwegian, just like my mom. So Sámi is the language of the Sámi kindergarten. But there are many language practices in a Sámi kindergarten in Norway. The Sámi kindergarten is an arena for North Sámi language practice in a predominantly Norwegian-speaking community, which makes it something like of a breathing space for the minority language, like Fishman points to. Also, Xenos and Gorter has developed on these ideas. North Sámi is the official language, and strong language models are in use. The one person, one language strategy, for example. Both teachers and children were proficient in both North Sámi and Norwegian at the time I did my field work, which is not always the case in communities outside core Sámi areas, coastal areas. However, it's important to note the difference between being bilingual and doing bilingualism. All teachers and children in the kindergarten were Sámi. In different contexts or spaces, language choices could vary between teachers and children, teachers and parents, and in child groups. However, teachers would speak North Sámi with the children and expect the children to use North Sámi with them. There were strong language models, but there was also something you could describe probably as sustainable translanguaging. But language was not the only goal for my research. It was also play. And I understand play as a frame characterized by peer socialization, like for Saro, Rogers, Nevans, and in Norway, Øksnes. It is part of the children's own culture. And the shape of it, the frame, is recognized by rules, by repetitions, and by innovations as well, much like language, really. Role play can also be conceived of as theater, the children being perceived as the medieval theater troupe coming to town, arranging their scene, doing their piece, and even being their own audience, like Brian Sutton Smith points to. So when play and language comes together, I did research the stylized language use that belonged to play, that belonged to the children's own culture. To find the codes of role play, I used conversation analysis. Like Brian Sutton Smith points to, children playing show awareness of and manipulate two levels of being, the duality mundane and virtual, a thesis and antithesis coming together in the synthesis of play transformations. The linguistic cues carry the information, this is play, and it also carries the information on which level of being, mundane, virtual, that any linguistic utterance belongs to. So I divided the utterance types of role play into these four categories. Directory utterance, that is something of the narrative. I will come back to that shortly. Role utterances or in-character utterances. That's the make-believe utterances of the characters or play objects. And magical utterances, the utterances that by saying the words, they come into being. And I have also included out-of-play utterances that are about to play, but not really in the play. So this all comes together as code switching, as language alternation, and more recently, like as translanguaging. As Alvarez Kakamo and Gafaranga points to, code switching is switching between elements of language that has meaning as otherness in the local interaction. This otherness is of use to the children to show which level of reality they are in. In role players' interaction, the codes of role play has meaning as otherness. It's a cluster of cues, dividing mundane and virtual levels, as the examples from Dragons and Castle, one of the episodes, from the episode I'm going to show you. Piera, who is nearly 4, says, "Ikodan halit jäkkara," which is North Sámi. Don't you want that one? And then he switches. Oh, I wasn't going to switch that way. Sorry. And then he switches to a Norwegian role utterance. "Å, jeg vil dit gå." which is clearly different. I've used a difficult to read font, sorry about that, which is in Norwegian, but it's not in the Norwegian regional dialect. It's in some sort of caricature of High Norwegian, or the dialect of the capital city of Norway, Oslo, which is far from where we live. And then at the end it says spise, spise, so eat, eat, which is a magical utterance. By uttering the words, the character, the princess, eats. So in local interactions, switching from one named language to another may not signify anything in itself. It is the codes of role play that has meaning. So what this looks like to me with newer theories is spontaneous translanguaging, the use of one's full linguistic repertoire. Play in two languages is paraphrasing Gafaranga's talk in two languages. So the languages in question are North Sámi and Norwegian, but there are several varieties in these languages as well. Their parents' dialect, which would be Norwegian and or North Sámi. The Sámi used in kindergarten, which is a mix of different North Sámi dialects. It's the local Norwegian dialect, at least for the older children. It is the Norwegian and Sámi spoken by people from other areas, and it's high or standardized Norwegian and North Sámi from media and other sources. And then there is the in-group language of the children, which I think play language is. So what do they choose to signify role play? The material I will present you is a transcription from a single sequence of role play, which I named Dragons and Castle. You may recognize it. It's not particularly Sámi or even Norwegian. It's global play stuff. I chose that because I wanted to show how varied any single interaction can be in language use and choice. This sequence of role play shows two children, Anna, who is 4 years and 3 months at the time, and Bjera, who is 3 years and 9 months. They're totally absorbed in their play. They're situated in the main room of the department, in a place where people walk past, and it is not secluded at all. During the sequence, there are many different voices and noises on the tape. So the recording is very muddled, and it can be difficult to hear what they're saying at times. Although in the midst of this cacophony of voices and actions, they keep their attention on the role play and on each other. It's an intense interaction. Most of the interaction is just a perfect example of turn-taking and mutual understanding, of seemingly seamless change from one language to another, of brilliance of the codes and rules of role play. Only one utterance during the 5 minutes of the sequence I filmed is directed at another. And this is an utterance to reject a third party from joining them in play. From old code switching theory, it could be said that the Norwegian is the language of rejection for them. Role play as theater is a narrative created in interaction. And we see here the use of past tense on ongoing actions as signifying a virtual sphere. Bjera and Anna are here using only North Sámi. So utterance 1, Bjera, ja, dalai mu dinga. And this here was my stuff. Anna, ja, dalai mu hästa. Yes, and he was my horse. Bjera, ja, dalai mu sarsafas. And this was my sheep again. And Anna, no guakte hästa mislecha. Dark algai duoslem. Now we had 2 horses, and this one should be he. Now, in this sequence, we see how the children master turn-taking. They master and use the rules of code play, and they master the use of Sámi in the context of Sámi kindergarten. We only speak Sámi in the kindergarten. So all in all, this should be the norm, the expected choice. They use gaze to organize turn-taking, paying close attention to each other. They latch their turns together so as to make a narrative. Following the rules of role play, they are now setting the scene, and they are using past tense to do so. Grammatically, it's perhaps somewhat creative, but what this owes to is uncertain. It could be their own incomplete acquisition. It could be learning a language in attrition, or simply using a version of this language that is common amongst the children. We see they use sentences that are quite alike, so alignment might also be at work, mimicking each other in the interaction. As mentioned, they pay close attention to each other, shown by gaze, and that they lean towards each other. When each has finished his or her turn, he or she waits, shown by pause and body language as they lean back. Assuming the role, they use lines to speak through the character, and the lines are said with play voice. The children change tone of voice and language variety in order to act the role, sometimes very little or varying change. There's always a redundancy of cues for the play voice, with non-verbal signs as well, the high Norwegian dialect standard, an exaggerated tone change, and it is also present tense in verb forms. So we started out with utterances 1 to 4, and this is 12 through 15. Anna starts with, ja, da man take bias. Yes, and this one went up here. Ja, både, vännen min, hej vännen. So you can hear the tone of voice changing as I reenact their enactment here. So when she came, using the past tense for organizing the play. And in utterance 14, Anna says, "Oh, nej, det är dragehule." Oh no, it is a dragon's den, not was. So she is changing into present tense, as you do when you speak. These are the role utterance rules. And Piera mimics utterance type is magical utterances. Words that by saying them come into action, and they belong to the virtual level. Verbs form is in the infinitive present, but sometimes just a bare form of some sort. Like the example I used before with spise, eat. So what you have seen here is not only the different parts of role play and how these children master that, but also how children use their languages, or rather their bilingualism, according to the rules and organization of role play. The use of both languages, of language alternation, is unmarked. That is, the children do not make a point of language shift, and both children use the same kind of language alternation at large. But of course, not all the time. There are as well out of play utterances. These are utterances concerning play or the play situation on the mundane level. We see often in contact literature that conflict often brings out language alternation and repetition in languages where they use both languages for repetitions of their utterances. Language alternation seems to function as a cue for attention or stress to an utterance of some sort. So this is the rejection example with contexts. So Anna is using a role directory utterance. Da leide achi drage, atni drage. Da leide. This was the daddy dragon, the mummy dragon. No, he was that. And then something happens, signified with the 3 dots here, where Anna says, "Du får ikke lov til å komme hit," with a different tone of voice and present tense. "You're not allowed here," she says to the third party. And this changing of tense, verb tense, verb tempo, Pierre mimics that after a while. Vi ikke de her, hvor kongen hulen, eller where he uses the local Norwegian dialect. We're not these here, where the king, the cave, or So the previous turn, like conversation analysis, always often points to is that the previous sentence would decide the next sentence as well. So he adheres to the choice of Norwegian and to the choice of present tense. But then, after the disturbance, Anna goes back to the game with Mon mannen ofta tora. I went for a walk, with the past tense and the use of North Sámi again. The disturbance leads to a disturbance also in language choice. So this might be code switching, like Carol Myers-Scotten or Petra Auer would describe it, changing a language to reject. The last part of the role play does not follow the rules anymore. This might look like code switching from the outside, but it is important to observe how the children do not hesitate or speak about or look surprised at any of these language choices. Before this selection starts, they have again been involved in organizing play in Sámi. So I will read through it so that you can listen to a little bit of North Sámi play, role play language and role play language. So Piera says, Ndala gertsai dako, dale lasa. Now this so here, it was lock. It's not always so clear what they're trying to say, but it might be it was locked. 46, Anna says, data body gertsat. This it came to see. Again, the past tense, the directory utterances, and the use of the expected language, North Sámi. In 47, utterance 47, Piera is uttering a line that his doll says, Hej, du beste vän? Hello, are you the best friend? And Anna answers, ja, with her character. So both these lines are in Norwegian. Piera is the only one with a verb in it, and he uses the present tense. Then the role play continues in Norwegian in 49 and 50, which is a difference from the rest of the directory utterances, which are usually in North Sámi. So Piera says, och prinsessan räddade de, which means, and the princess saved them. Anna takes her turn. Jeg gådde å redde prinsessene. Og liksom det brenner her. I went to save the princesses, and like it burned here. So we see that it's a directory utterance, both by their tone of voice, but also by the use of past tense. They are organizing the play. They are telling the story. So it changes then to utterance 51 and 52, where present tense is again used. So perhaps the previous turn governs the next, and sometimes the language lingers when the kind of utterance or the utterance code changes. Piera says, oh, brenn, om og gå upp. So it's a big commotion here. Oh, burn, and I have to go up. And Anna continues, jeg kan kile vannet, du ordne. I can tickle the water. I don't know what that means. And you fix, and they probably did fix it, or maybe not. This is towards the end of their play sequence. And then Piera in utterance 53 says, Doslei dolla ja dieslei chatsidan oppis. It had fire and this had water, the other. They're back to organizing play. And Anna walks out that, yes, right, everybody could. And this is where a lot of commotion starts and the game ends. So in this sequence, Anna and Piera, they were both around 4 years, one nearly 4 and the other one right off, just turned 4. They're engaged in role play. So the hat indicates raised tone of voice, and co-occurring with this, a characteristic language variety, which I call play voice, the role utterance. So what this example is meant to show is that language alternation frequently, but not always, co-occurs with contextualization cues, contextualizing different realms of play. Here in a quite nice pattern, but it isn't always so. It could be like with utterance 49 and 50, where Norwegian is used, which is different from the rest of their directory utterances in language choice, named language choice, I might add. But it's similar in contextualization cues as local dialect and the use of past tense. So maybe the previous turn governs the next, and sometimes the language lingers while the utterance type changes. So does this mean that they know which language they are speaking and that it matters? Or does it simply not matter at all, which I find plausible when they turn to Sámi again for organizing? I don't think they really hear what language they choose, which named language they choose. Perhaps they just hear local dialect and past tense as part of the code cues. This leads to understanding bilingual role play as using a bilingual medium. It is a third choice, third space if we want to go with homi bava, and it is a tertium datur. It is a third choice. You don't speak either Norwegian or North Sámi. And much of this is due to the ritualized style of role play. It is a mode of language use distinct from the mundane. They use their languages, their full repertoire, as a role play medium. In this bilingual group of that was a bit too fast, sorry. In this bilingual group of children, this seems to be two languages fused into one style, one mode, or one medium. It is in a bilingual role play code. The code switching is not a contact phenomenon as switching between Norwegian and North Sámi. It is switching between the role play utterances. What this means for the Sámi kindergarten is not always clear. Some might judge this as dangerous multilingualism, the brilliance of their codes and their use of both languages, like Jan Blomert and Päivi Bata and others, Leppänen, when they're writing about the northern perspective on order, purity, and normality, and the use of the majority language in minority and indigenous minority situations like the Sámi kindergarten. It might be perceived as the children coming in with a bomb, the bilingual bomb into this more protected space for the indigenous language that the Sámi kindergarten is supposed to be. Translanguaging also could be perceived as this kind of threat, while, like Jan Blomert says, the bilingualism is the banner and rallying cry of sociolinguistics, and translanguaging is much in that vein. It is difficult to think about to convene the ideas of the breathing space for the Sámi language and the purity of the Sámi language, of the indigenous language, at the same time as the majority language has access to the same space. I will conclude with Sámi as the language of the Sámi kindergarten. And it is so, and it has to be so, in order to enable the children to be bilinguals, or do bilingualism, this was my point earlier. And still, they will use their bilingualism to make their own room, their own space, a third space, perhaps. To protect minority languages, the positive attitudes towards multilingual practices can be suspended, to use strong language models. to discuss the ethno-linguistic assumption, one people, one language, in a situation where a language fights for survival. I know the metaphors are violent, sorry about that, but that may not serve the minority people's rights. We have to use translanguaging and bilingual practices in a sustainable way, perhaps like for New Zealand, Seals and Olsen Reader has pointed to for early childhood care, and Zenos and Water for Basque and Spanish situations. To try to speak for the bilingual minority children as well may not serve their bilingual competence. They will need the monolingual North Sámi as well to become bilinguals or to become users of bilingualism. The only reason I believe for my material is that children were balanced bilinguals. And that concludes my speech. Thank you.
Kia ora, Carola, that was absolutely fascinating, and you've given us some great detail, and it's been so interesting to listen to the Sámi language as you've gone through that to illustrate the very points that you're making. I know that I have a number of questions, and I'm sure that some are going to come through in the Q&A, and Justine has questions as well. So I just wanted to start by asking if you could tell us a little bit more about the Norwegian situation, because I could hear some parallels with New Zealand, because you referred to a colonial history and you've just ended with some social justice type of exhortations. Would you be able to just tell us a little bit more about how the Sámi language came to be in the position it's in, so that it requires this active revitalisation and sustainability work, please?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yeah, it's I think Norwegian and Norway and New Zealand has many similarities, and that's one of the reasons we want our students to experience how New Zealand has dealt with bilingualism and biculturalism. In Norway, as it is, I believe, in Sweden and Finland, and perhaps Russia as well. I'm not very familiar with the Russian situation. Sámi languages has been largely territorialized. So it has been, I was mentioning the core Sámi areas. So that's where Sámi language is still very much alive and in daily use. You can go to the shops and use North Sámi. We have a Sámi parliament in Karasjok. We have art museums, and there are a lot of institutions for Sámi culture and nation building, and also for language use and studying of language, where the Arctic University of Norway has been very active, and we have a professor of Sámi language. We have so it is there, but the process of Norwegianization has been a very strong colonial force. So especially on the coastal areas, the non-core areas, there is no a very dire need for vitalization or even revitalization, where the area is so Norwegian dominant, where it used to be more balanced with Norwegian, Sámi, and even Kven, an immigrant Finnish language, which came to Norway and now is considered a unique language as well. And people have been mixing, it's been mixed marriages. So the institution building has been very, very important, and especially, I think, the kindergartens. So much is, maybe it's a bit like New Zealand and language opportunities for language use of North Sámi. If it's just limited to the institutions, the modern institutions like kindergarten schools. It's not very visible in the daily life of the Norwegians, and with, well, migration as it is, modern migration, the capital city of Norway has the largest Sámi population, and Sámi is not very visible there.
Yes, I can hear many parallels with Aotearoa New Zealand, but I think it sounds like there is certainly some areas of strength that we're still building. You made mention that the kindergarten you did this field work in was a private institution. So here, many families have been responsible for setting up early childhood settings that prioritise the use of Māori language. So what was the Sámi organisation that set up that kindergarten and the rationale behind it?
Yes, the Sámi community is quite small. So if I say the Sámi organization, it would be very clear which kindergarten this is. For those who know, they know it's very difficult to keep the kindergartens anonymous, of course, but it is a Sámi institution. And it has been a political struggle to get the municipalities, the community, at the community level to start Sámi kindergartens. And where I live, there is a private kindergarten and now even a communal or a municipality kindergarten. So the commune of Alta has started a kindergarten as well, but after very much pressure, and it's been such a struggle. The political parties have like met a wall, and although they've been friendly enough in the meetings, nothing has happened for years. So it was like private initiatives. It's been parents in this political party as well. It's been parents of children. They wanted to grow up bilingual or with Sámi language.
Yeah, and that's great. We've had the situation here where parents, of course, have lost their use of their language too, and that's been for Māori and Pacific families too. We have a particular responsibility here for Pacific children and families as well. And yeah, it's such a good reminder to us of that importance of advocacy and support. They might be related questions. You referred to being and doing bilingualism, and you also referred to balanced bilinguals. So I just wondered if you could elaborate a little bit more on what you meant about the being and the doing and the balanced for us, please.
As minority, indigenous minority peoples have experienced, their bilingualism was frowned upon. Early research would have findings like bilinguals were inferior, intellectually less capable, and so on. And their languages would not be very nice to hear. They would be mixed. It's a bad thing about the mixing. So the balanced bilinguals are those who would speak each of the languages to at an age adequate level, whatever that is. But they would use in this kindergarten. I was shown this kindergarten department because as one of the few, this kindergarten department had children who had home environments using Sámi as well. And that is not the case for all Sámi children. They don't get to grow up in Sámi speaking families because of the Norwegianisation. So the balance is about how well and how much they speak both of the languages. The being and doing part, I did have the theory behind this from Peter Auer's work in Germany and German-Italian bilinguals, where he came to the point that, where he pointed out that being a bilingual is not a thing. You can have another identity. It's the doing bilingualism that shows, and it makes it a lot easier for us social linguists because we can then use the conversation analysis and just do what we see. But I had I did make a faux pas with one of the teachers as well, and because I wanted to hear her experiences of being. It's easy to say, of doing bilingualism. I did make the faux pas. So I did say something like, I'm translating directly from Norwegian, you who are a bilingual, what do you think about? And then she looks at me and she said, no, I am not a bilingual. I am a Sámi. I do bilingualism. So that was me standing corrected. And so this is really important. The doing of languages is not the identity.
Yes. Yes. Oh no, that's a really helpful distinction, because so what the teacher was saying was that she was using both languages to support the children, and that was the but it wasn't her identity. Fascinating. Yeah.
No, it is a Sámi kindergarten, and she is just a Sámi while she's speaking Norwegian. It doesn't make her Norwegian.
No.
It makes her.
No.
So that was it was. Then I experienced it. It is not just theory. It is an experience.
Absolutely. And you talked quite a bit about translanguaging and that third space kind of idea too. And translanguaging is very common in Europe. People are switching between languages and switching between codes all the time in different places. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on what those authors meant by dangerous multilingualism in that space? Because I think for many of us, this idea of translanguaging would have been seen as positive, particularly in helping mutual understanding and helping children to learn languages. So that term's come as a surprise to many.
Yes, translanguaging was first made known by Welsh Jen Williams as a way of teaching. But for us, kindergarten is not teaching; it's just being. It's just experiencing and acquiring language. And there are different parts of translanguaging that comes into being. And as Jan Blommert, he writes about this sociolinguists, and the banner and rallying cry of sociolinguistics has now been bilingualism, and it's always good to use more languages in one. But then what about the threatened languages, the languages that will always be the other language, or that will always be dominated by other larger languages for everyday use? They need these safe spaces. Spanish researchers Zenos and Gorter wrote about sustainable translanguaging as a way of using both languages in teaching that would still protect the minority language and the threatened indigenous languages. So this is different from just bilingual bilingual education, because they propose, and Seals and Olsen Reader from New Zealand also points to this, how you can use the spontaneous translanguaging, like role play would be, to make a more natural kind of bilingual material that would show actual use of the languages. But you have to make translanguaging sustainable. You have the one person, one language strategy, which is the strong models. But for sustainable translanguaging, you have to have this breathing space. You have to have the positive status of the minority language, and so there are a lot of things you can do that, even though it's not possible to switch to the minority language completely, you can still support it.
Absolutely. Right? So that leaves a question about the children themselves. In those interactions, did one child take the lead as to which language was being used at any time? What were the kind of the peer culture rules around language use?
I think certainly the fact that the older children were balanced bilingual or used both their languages in a balanced way and had Sámi language at home as well meant that they were very proficient in both Norwegian and Sámi. So they would that would create the culture. The younger children learn from the older children, and there would be different language practices in different child groups. And there was particularly this one child, he would often be spoken to in Norwegian. They had sort of created a relationship in Norwegian. So even though he would speak to the teachers in Sámi, and when he initiated conversations or play, he could use North Sámi, but the other children would switch to Norwegian. He was identified as Norwegian speaking. And it would be difficult to change that. But as particularly, it also is about who I could film. But particularly Jorret, whom I quoted, and some of the girls would be. It was amazing what they could do with their languages and the little changes in language use, how they would use their language to govern each other, really, and to govern the play.
You gave us lots of lovely examples of that. Look, Carola, we could be talking for a very long time, but our time is almost up. So I just want to thank you so very, very much for such an interesting presentation that's reminded us of the complexity and skill of children's linguistic, communicative and relational repertoires and the ways that they use these in their peer group cultures. It's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you. And I will now just hand back to Justine to close the seminar.
Kia ora, Helen. And thank you, Carola, for your presentation. Language, culture and identity are a key focus in our New Zealand early childhood curriculum, Te Whāreki. And as a culturally and linguistically diverse society, it's really important for us to continue to learn about how we can support children's learning, development and relationships through play in ways that honour their linguistic and cultural diversity. So you've given us so much to think about, and I'm sure that what you've shared this evening will prompt ongoing conversations amongst our early childhood seminar series community. So ngā mihi nui ki a koe, Carola. Thank you, Carola. We appreciate your time, especially that you got up so early to be with us, and also for your sharing of your expertise. To our early childhood seminar series audience, if you wish to share or revisit this presentation, please do check out our early childhood seminar series YouTube channel. The recording of this seminar will be available in the next few days. And we look forward to seeing you again in June for what will be an in-person seminar with Dr. Christine Jones-Diaz from Western Sydney University. So keep an eye on your inbox for the flyer and registration information. Thank you again for joining us today, and we'll close with karakia. Me noi tātou. Kia tau te rangi Mārie o te rangi I te iho nei, o papatua nuku I tākoto nei, o te tai ao I awhi nei, ki runga I a tātou, te hei, mauri ora. May the peace of the sky above, of the earth below, of the all-embracing universe rest upon us all. Behold, it is life. Take good care, everyone. Ka kite anō.